As the years roll on, it becomes more and more apparent that the LGBTs and the T activists were lying when they campaigned for acceptance and inclusion for them as people, etc. And it was all about allowing people to be taught in schools about gay marriage, and they wanted the right to marry themselves, etc. And they demedicalized the transgender element to make it seem as if it was a natural occurrence, and that really should have been where it ended. But in such times, they have campaigned for more and more and more, and demanded more and more and more, and for the most part, they have been backed up 100% by the government and the people behind the scenes. And with all that pandering, society seems to be going further and further down the degenerate rabbit hole, and we are well over the line of what should have been considered acceptable. With this lunacy, I thought Scotland was bad, but this really takes the fucking cake. No longer are we talking about transgender adults. I thought that was the way the protocol was supposed to work. You know, granted, the amount of children proclaiming to be transgender or exploring their options is a number that seems to be rising annually, and it's no coincidence. Start indoctrinating children and making the LGBTs and the T very child friendly. All of a sudden there's a rise in kids proclaiming to be a gender other than what they actually are. But by law, I thought that you can pretend to your heart's content, but you can't change sex/gender. But now in Canada, they have gone one step too far. In a long line of steps too far from Canada, granted, but misgendering children and preventing transition can constitute the child abuse, the Supreme Court has ruled. Wow. Courts have ruled in favour of a teenager who wants medical treatment in his gender transition, despite opposition from his father, in a ruling that grants transgender children more legal rights and protections. They don't need more legal rights and protections. If anything, they need to be protected from the LGBTs and the T community, because, as I've said in multiple videos before, if a child, for some reason, starts to be confused as to who they are, it's not going to be a process that they will come out the other side knowing that that was a phase. If the LGBTs and the T charities, campaigners, and in fact the community itself are fucking everywhere surrounding that child's life. So if anything, they're detrimental to children that may very well get confused as a result of their influence. And this really is not helping matters. You really do have to question, like, the motives from the people that allowed this to become integrated into the law. I mean, last month the Supreme Court ruled that a teenager with the support of multiple doctors and healthcare workers can start hormone therapy, even though his father thinks he's not mature enough to make such a decision. The father appealed the decision on March the 4th. Legal experts say the decision will have an impact on the responsibility of parents by altering family law. It means parents need to respect their child's chosen gender pronouns and gender itself and name. It also sets a precedent for transitioning youth across the province, suggesting that seeking medical assistance is a health decision and not a political or moral one that a parent can stop. So, transgender activists, campaigners, and now the transgender ideology has managed to get its fingers into the legality system to a point where they can undermine parents. Until a child is considered an adult, I don't think that they have the decision or the right to go on the merry-go-round of gender transitioning, taking hormone blockers, etc. They are not at the age of 18, at the very least. They're a teenager. I can't even believe I'm having to explain that. You know what I mean? That should be obvious. But it seems that the obvious is a commonly ignored feat these days. The ruling, which doesn't include the names of the family, explained that the 14-year-old, who was assigned as a female at birth, here we go, has identified as a boy since he was 11. Oh well then, that's that. with the support of his mother. Oh, I might have fucking known. The father opposes it, but the mother's all for it. He wanted to start testosterone hormone therapy in the summer of 2018. However, his father opposed the treatment and took the issue to court. Wow. The mother, son, medical professionals, teachers, the teachers and the school district and the Ministry of Education all fought back. What does that tell you? We have gone from acceptance, as I said, to allowing these people to live as they are, to an education system that has got this stuff well and truly ingrained within it. Teachers that have all been tuned up and all the LGBT diversity training going. And of course, medical professionals that seem to be, for the most part, unethical. And then the mother, who has bought into the notion that if a child declares to be something other than the sex they are, then their word is gospel. It's a dangerous fucking game, man. The ruling has had significant implications for how we define child abuse, according to trans rights lawyer Adrian Smith. Because of the ruling, misgendering a person, using the incorrect name for them, and trying to persuade them not to undertake gender-affirming care are forms of family violence, and that's really important. In other words, if parents misgender and reject their child for being transgender, that could constitute emotional abuse, for which they could be reported to authorities. Although Smith was not directly involved in the case, the ruling is relevant to the work in human rights law, and as an individual, Smith is transgender and non-binary. What the fuck? I might have known. And uses they, them. That's good for you. You're not non-binary, buddy. And 42 years old, Smith says they wish they had these kind of legal protections growing up as a trans kid. Oh, Jesus, no. See, I hate when I hear that shit from transgenders. I wish these sort of rules and regulations were about when I was a child. There's a reason that they weren't. And you gotta ask yourself why they are reality now. It's not to make your life easier. It's not to make actual transgender people and their life that bit easier, because the amount of real gender identity disorder sufferers that are out there constitute to an absolutely minuscule amount of the populace. And that's not just here, that's Canada, America, etc. A minuscule amount of real transgenders out there. This is just another nail in the coffin of normalizing the ideology that has snuck its way in to acceptance, masquerading as simplistic LGBT acceptance. This is fucking dangerous, man. Because now kids can proclaim to be something other than what they are, and by law you've got to go along with it now. That's a very, very dangerous, slippery slope. The decision is very clear, so authorities are going to be more clear about how damaging failing to recognise the chosen gender of a trans child, quote unquote, trans child, can be. Young trans people, quote unquote, can take comfort that the way that they are often misgendered and dead-named is a human rights violation and could rise to the level of being family violent. But again, out of all these trans young people that you speak of, how many are actual real trans young people? I suppose we'll never know now, considering the law is on their side. So everybody's got to go along with the fairy tale, the fantasy. Everybody's got to pretend that the things that they are saying at that current time are in fact a reality, reinforcing the delusion. So even if it was just a child that, for whatever reason, maybe the LGBTs in the T education or whatever it may be, got a bit confused as to who they were, they will never see the light of day again with implementations like this. But of course it's disguised as inclusion and progressive and all these namby-pamby words, but you've just got to remove all that sugar-coated bullshit and see for what it is. It potentially reinforces the belief in children that have become confused as a result of this shit. So any benefit that it may have for actual transgenders out there, I would say at the very least, there's an equal amount of detriment on the horizon for kids that ain't actually transgender, but start to think that they are. Existing law already gives the right to minors to make their own informed decisions on healthcare on a case-by-case basis. A lawyer, executive director of West Coast Leaf, a non-profit dedicated to gender equality, but his ruling clarifies the decisions around gender transitions are a medical issue and will empower young people whose parents are opposed to them transitioning. And why are they opposed to them transitioning? Some granted it might be for religious reasons or whatnot, but I think for the most part it's because they want to wait until you are at an age where you know for a fact that what you're doing is your choice and not a choice that is derived from some fantasy, some make-believe bullshit, or at the very least you might grow out of it. It's not far-fetched. It does happen. Less and less now, of course, with implementations like this constantly. In court, one of the doctors testified that if the teen boy is to delay hormone treatment, he will experience ongoing unnecessary suffering and continued gender dysphoria. Well, that's part and parcel with having gender identity disorder. But your gender dysphoria, if you really are a true sufferer of such, will not go away completely even after a transition. Hence why the suicidality rate is still ridiculously high, even though they blame society for the perils that these people go through. Doesn't change reality, man. Another doctor said if he doesn't start the testosterone treatment, which will allow him to start going for puberty as a male, the son may be so distraught as to attempt suicide. There is a significant risk of suicide attempts and possibly even completion if treatment is delayed. And right there, I can't believe what I have just fucking read, man. What the fuck is this? You are using a side effect from gender identity disorder sufferers as a means to emotionally manipulate how the legality process comes to be. If these kids could potentially commit suicide because they can't start taking puberty blockers, that says a fucking lot about what is going on in their head. That says an awful lot. But again, completely pretending that gender identity disorder is something completely normal and allowing children as young as possible to go for the process and allow everybody in question to go for the process and pretend that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, that is the height of medical negligence, in my opinion. And there's a nefarious element to this. He could potentially commit suicide, and why would that be? Because he's got a mental health issue, a mental health disorder that mutilating the body will not solve. It's a mental health disorder, not a fucking identity. Unreal, man. He just believes that the child needs some protection at this point. He's too young to make such a decision. But according to the ruling, multiple doctors, including a psychiatrist, said a teenager understands the risks and the benefits of the treatment. Alright, okay. Well, we'll see you on trans regret, potentially, in 10, 15 years' time. I wonder who you will resent then. Your father, for giving a fuck. Or your mother, for thinking everything you said as a 14-year-old was gospel. Peace.